Yes, I'm Asimo. Hello. No one here, right? We're alone, right? لا بس لسه يعني it's 4:50 ف Layla's saying hi.
Hi Lulu.
كويس.
وجهي يونيز.
انت فين؟
أنا هو.
هي في جريس يا لولو، مسافرة مش هنا في كايرو.
مش في القاهرة؟
لا مش
No.
شكلها سافرت خلاص.
ما هي
سافرت خلاص.
سافرت خلاص.
وراها.
المفروض ان اكيد بريفليج ورويال هاوس هيحضروا.
إيه ده؟ طب كويس. That's good news إن في حد من مصر.
Yes, I'm sure in the privilege school and royal house school are going to attend. أصلا royal house is the school that I'm going to train on read on Thursday, but they are very interested. يعني mama, they need to attend. But they were very excited when they knew there was a webinar.
Very good. Demi's here.
Hello.
Demi.
Hi. I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
Good.
We're all fine, thank you.
We're all the staff. No one yet.
Oh, okay. Who's here?
Who?
Who's here? I haven't met the Egypt staff yet. So.
And Romani.
ماما بتقولك
Hi, nice to sort of meet you somehow.
Hi Demi, this is Yasmin from Egypt.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm fine, thank you very much for asking.
You're welcome.
We have Romani and we have someone else. I don't know. Who's Prime Press? I don't know.
Maybe that's Ahmed Hamdi, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I suppose we should just wait for a little while.
Yeah. Okay.
Is the distributor from Latin America joining?
Yeah, they are joining, but they
Yeah.
has joined yet. Or wait, and I've just sent them a reminder like 15 minutes ago.
Okay, probably we should start at like 5 past or something to get everybody.
That's
Yeah.
You're right, two schools are attending from Egypt. They're interested in Read On, and they Yasmin is saying that they want to adopt the program. So it's
nice.
Two that I'm working with, so I'm sure that they will attend. There are others. I'm sure that there's another school that I will train on Read On next Tuesday as
this afternoon. Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks for joining everybody. Today's presentation is going to be an introduction to teaching phonics to young learners, and it regards the implementation of the SATPIN approach that allows you to guide your young learners into reading and writing. Now, just to give a little bit of my bio, I joined Prime Press just before the new year. And before doing so, I had worked as an ESL teacher in Greece for 3 years. 2 was split in the private educational system using the CEFR, all the way from A1 to proficiency level. And then the last year was working as an English classroom educator to preschool learners. So just again, thanks for coming today. So the way we're going to do this presentation is that we're going to sort of give a roundabout view of the SATPIN approach and how we at Prime Press can offer materials to support and facilitate this. So the first half of this presentation looks at the basic kind of ins and outs of the SATPIN approach and synthetic phonics. Some of you might be more familiar than others, so we're just going to give a little look at the whats, wheres and whys of this approach. And the second part will look at the how of this approach, which is how to transform your classroom into a SATPIN Phonics classroom and how we can use our series Read On to support that. Okay. So So this is the first of our webinar series of this kind, so that we can offer still some support to our teachers and educators, even through sort of difficult periods that we're experiencing at the moment. So thanks again, and hopefully up close soon. Okay, great. So, oh no. Can everybody see me? My computer's frozen.
Yes, Demi, we can see you're sharing your screen. We can see it.
Yeah, it's frozen. Okay, let me just, sorry about this.
It's okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, we're here. Sorry about that. Everybody's getting used to this new model. So, okay, just to start off this presentation, we've got a little bit of a warm-up. So it's a kind of experiment. And so I'd like you to either take a pen and paper if you have one near, or just use your mind's notebook and do it in your head. And take 30 seconds to write down as many 3-letter words as possible that we can produce out of this letter group. Now, a lot of us are obviously quite familiar with this letter group. So by letter group, I mean phonemes and graphemes. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, and the corresponding sounds. And we want as many 3-letter words following the CVC structure. So that's consonant, vowel, consonant. So I'll just give you 30 seconds to quickly do that. Maybe a little bit less. Okay, cool. Now that probably happened quite naturally, because if we're used to teaching phonics, we probably have a lot of storage of these kinds of words in our head ready to come out. But now I just want to move us to the second group, and I'd like you to do the same thing. So this is the SATPIN. So as many CVC 3-letter words as possible. Okay. So like I said, you'll probably be more familiar with this phonics group. So we might need to step out of our comfort zone a little bit when we approach this one. And if we do and we compare the lists, you'll probably see that this group of letters has a greater potential for 3-letter word formation. So this was a really, really basic introduction to a blending exercise that we might do as phonics teachers. So what is SATPIN synthetic phonics, and why is it important? Okay, so you've just kind of done the SATPIN phonics exercise, but more comprehensively, SATPIN is a phonics teaching methodology that moves away from the traditional ABC format of teaching. So phonics, if just to give a quick outline, is the teaching of letter-sound relationships, and it gives a systemic approach to reading and writing via alphabets and sounds. So instead of learning to sight memorize words, children can learn how to code and decode and blend and learn how to read in that way. So it sits in the branch of a phonics group called synthetic phonics, which is also known as integrative phonics or blended phonics. So these are teaching methodologies. So the term synthetic phonics comes from the act of synthesizing or blending. And with this approach, children are first introduced to individual sounds and letters, phonemes and graphemes, most often via stories, objects, images, and play. So after having learned to write them and say them individually, they can eventually construct the words through blending and segmenting activities. So it's known for its optimum efficiency, as children can usually get reading and writing by the end of kindergarten, depending on your contextual educational system. So the way that children start to blend is that they do a similar exercise to how we started, and they focus on a CVC structure, consonant, vowel, consonant, but tricky words and sounds are taught over time. So here you can see they're presented as magic words, and this is from our Read On series. So the kinds of words that don't respond to systemic sounds necessarily, or they have some kind of inconsistency, they might learn as sight words. So the reason synthetic phonics is important is that it allows students to engage in word production, enact self-efficacy, and they get rewarded from skills development and independent enactment of language. It's also been shown to bridge gender gaps in progress towards reading, and though it's typically been understood that girls generally have an enhanced reading performance over boys in early development, with the SATPIN synthetic phonics approach, this appears to disappear, with the boys doing equally as well as girls. So that's something that we always like to hear. But just before we go into the letter groups, we just want to give a little bit of SATPIN's history. So it started in 2010 under the British EYSF educational system, which is the early years curriculum for the UK. So it exists mostly in these tiers: literacy development and communication and language development, but it overlaps in the way that it's taught into some of the other tiers as well, like personal and social emotional development, through the way that they learn how to understand the world. So understanding the world is also something that phonics approaches. So it's gradually being implemented all around the world, in part because it's got really successful results, and we're seeing some of that feedback from the schools that use our series in Egypt. It has great benefits that we've just outlined, and it's not system specific. So it can be applied to any country's educational system in the area of English language learning. It can be implemented in international schools where English is the educational language, starting at kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, depending again on your educational system, or in private schools specifically geared towards language education. However, what is really important when we teach phonics is that we teach it consistently and regularly. So everyday phonics is where we see the best learning outcomes. Right, so this was a little bit of an overview. Let's get on to those letter groups. So why is it called SATPIN? Okay, you've probably figured out by now that it's called SATPIN because it's a system that moves away from the classic ABC phonics, as I said, and it teaches phonics in these 6 fundamental stages. So these are the way that the letters are grouped. So this is the way that the sounds are grouped, and they're designed in this way to optimize word production. So when learning these in a sort of linear fashion, children can begin to make as many CVC words as possible, and it essentially gets them reading after just learning the first group. So if we go back to the beginning of this presentation, we can see a little bit of the evidence of that. So it's formulated in this way based on the understanding that children actually want to decode. They don't want to be spoon-fed, they want to be self-reliant and independent readers, and we can rely on this method of grouping to open up that possibility just faster than the ABC method. So these are the 6 fundamental stages. Just take a quick look at them and see, deduce as to whether you can see this functioning well. So remember, it's a linear fashion. So as you move on to the second group, you begin to consolidate also the first group, and so on and so forth. Okay. Great. Cool. So in a sense, with this kind of grouping, and this is a metaphor that I really like to use as an educator and a learner of language myself, we can think about language learning as a tapestry, and these are the messy strings. These are the graphemes and the phonemes, and these are all the sounds and the things that we need, the tools that we need to construct our understanding of language. And the job of the educator is to help guide students into weaving that into a loom, and that's what SATPIN Phonics helps us with. We can put all of these sounds into order quite quickly to communicate experiences of the world with efficacy, creativity, independence, and confidence. And the way that this is done through blending and segmenting sound to make words and worlds that gradually allow students to begin to read and write and put the world into order. So here you can see that SATPIN actually differentiates between open mouth and closed mouth sounds. It doesn't use this ambiguous vowel that we use oftentimes when we teach phonics. And this is to prevent confusion in word construction and blending. So for example, we've got we don't have the traditional s, t, in which it's a little bit ambiguous what comes next. So this is a kind of visual representation of how SATPIN Phonics might help to unlock some of these blending, segmenting, and decoding skills that children need. Okay, good. So that was a pretty quick overview of what SATPIN synthetic phonics is, and I hope that we have a little bit of an idea of what that is now. And so we're moving on to the second part of the presentation that focuses on how this can be implemented in the classroom and how this can be done with our series Read On, which is a series developed specifically to follow the line of SATPIN synthetic phonics. Right. So this is Read On. You can see here that it's got some pretty funky visuals. I really like it. So Read On Phonics is a 2-level phonics program, which means that it unfolds over 2 years, and it can get your students reading by the end of kindergarten. Again, and I stress, depending on your educational context. It's comprised of a 2-level student book and a corresponding workbook. Each one has a teacher's guide and comes with fun posters, letter cards, flashcards, and it has an e-kit. Now the e-kit is really exciting, but unfortunately we haven't got a lot of time to go through that today. So if anyone's interested in finding more about blended learning options that we have, please do let us know either in the chat box or via email after. So each book and corresponding workbook comes with a set of activities, stories, craft and play, lots of exciting and engaging material. And each teacher's guide comes with an abundance of support and advice as to how you can use this to turn your classroom into a SATPIN classroom. So the reason that we give such a comprehensive teacher support is because studies show that happy students and teachers better facilitate learning processes. So all of our volumes at Prime Press follow this principle, which is why we try to offer engaging volumes for students and teachers that are offered full support by way of our teacher's guide and also training sessions. Right, this is Read On. This is our scope and sequence, which we can see follows the 6 sound groups. It has 6 units or 6 themes with 5 lessons and a review in all. So here we see the first theme, the 5 lessons and a review. Now it's in the review that the blending really starts to take place, but it starts as early as the 3rd lesson. So the themes in this book are fun stories with personified animals, themes of friendship, everyday life, everyday surroundings, and they're designed to plan out 6 weeks of lessons per unit, depending on the speed of the class. And each book spans out over a 9-month school year, again, depending on the progress of the class. So we're going to now take a little moment to look at the first story and the first sound. We meet the sound of the SATPIN Phonics. So we're introduced to the form of a snake at the sea, under the sun, and sliding on the sand. And all of the sounds have a story accompaniment. So this is the fun animal character where it's put into context. It's put into a context and it faces a kind of situation that includes the sound in multiple forms, a chance for role play, and a question for classroom engagement. So do you like the sun? Why? So you can see that this can kind of be stretched as much as possible. You can already sort of start seeing the potential of stretching this. So where is the sun? Where is the snake? Do you like snakes? So on and so forth. Now, once the class has read this story together, we then move over to a set of activities which accompanies the story, and it's based around activities that match and allow the children to practice the vocabulary that's been learned through the image work, and then they can try to write and get to know the letter. Okay, and this is where they can sort of be left alone to do their own writing work. And I mean, I've seen children really get stuck into this. They get quite fixated and mesmerized by the beginnings of the writing process. So this will probably be the first letter that they learn to write. So one thing to flag is that what you can see here in the let's practice part, the words that we've given in the first theme are not decodable, but they are sight learned words, right? So this is because this is the first lesson. This continues all up until the end of the 3rd lesson until they have at least 3 sounds to work with. So these first 3 lessons work as an introduction to give them information about how to connect the word and the picture, how to do the exercise, the general structure of the book, and some words that they can use in everyday language, some things that they're already familiar with. And then after the 3rd lesson, they can start to blend. But then we get to the review, in which the blending starts to unfold properly. So all of the letters that we see, so all of the letters of the SATPIN and so on and so forth, follow this framework until the end of the unit review, where the students really home in on their learned knowledge of sounds and letters, and they get the opportunity to do some blending and segmenting work. It's through these exercises that the consolidation of the SATPIN happens. They're accompanied with some engaging craft and play activities to heighten that development through self-efficacy focus and the happiness factor that is so necessary to a classroom. And here you can see the review unfold, by which the children will be able to blend all of the letters together, unlocking enough decodable words to actually read their first story. So now I want to introduce you to Next Step. Okay, so this is the series Next Step, and it's a reader series. Because at Prime Press, we want to try and test our promises. And if we say that we're going to get children reading very, very quickly, we actually want to create material to enable them to do so. So after every single theme that corresponds with a letter group, the students should be able to read a full reader by themselves, okay? So this is really exciting. Since our series are only comprised of decodable language, so this is PIC, and the whole story is comprised of only decodable language that they've learned from the first SATPIN group. Okay, so this is great consolidation. Now we won't go through this now, unfortunately, because we don't have time. I think I'm already running a little bit over. But again, just send us an email or write in the chat box if you're interested, and we can give you another presentation. Right. So now just going back to the read on, this is the workbook, and it follows a really similar framework to the student book, with some more fun activities and some more matching writing exercises. So there are 2 pages for each sound and 2 pages for each review. Now is the really important part of this presentation. So this is the material that you need really to turn that classroom into a SATPIN classroom. Here is our teacher's guide. Okay, so it gives comprehensive lesson guides that offer full support to the teachers. They correspond with each of the lessons and the sounds, and it really allows you to stretch that content in each of the books. So each lesson in the teacher's guide has learning objectives here. So obviously we all know as teachers how important that is to set objectives to give security, support, clarity, and also rewards to your class. And it helps you sort of track your curriculum and your progress. So it includes warm-up questions and discussions. Okay. And these can sort of, again, be stretched. Do you know what a snake is? We can start to have some basic elicitation. Then we read the story, and then we get to the activities and then consolidation. So I really like this consolidation part because I can really see how it might play out in a classroom. So ask students to hiss like a snake. I can see little learners rolling around pretending to be a snake and really having that sort of memorable experience that allows them to concretize their knowledge. Okay, so it has some great exercises, and it has teacher's notes. Now, the way that we've designed this is to really allow teachers to set up their week, their month, however long they need, and know exactly what it is they're doing. So the materials needed are listed. So here, for example, we have a clay activity. So clay, you will see, is in the materials listed, and then you can see the activity unfold. So every single lesson has this, okay? And this is all the way from book 1 all the way to book 2. Okay, so like I said, we would usually, if not for lacking time, go through our e-kit a little bit in depth now. But since we don't have time to do that, I'd like to just offer you once again the chance to go through that at another point. So our takeaway from today has basically been that the SATPIN approach is a successful phonics approach that follows an alternative letter grouping method. It's best put into action through assigning symbols to sounds and enacting this through interactive and engaging material, which we believe we offer with Read On. So our Read On series has been developed specifically based on this methodology, and we have actually had already excellent feedback from users of the series in Egypt. So now I think I'd like to open up for a few questions if anyone's got any that they want to ask. Thank you for your time. Hello.
Demi, Royal House School are there, so Miss Hib is there, and they had a question when I visited them that they said they feel the blended exercises is not are not much to their needs, and they feel that it's very few. So could you please give them like how they can overcome that?
Yeah, so actually in the e-kit there are lots of additional blending exercises that are sort of comprised as games, but also as additional exercises that you might find in the student book. So within the student book we have, let me just go back to, oops. Give me a moment just to try and sort out why my slides are being a little bit slow. Where are we? Okay, yeah. So here we see that we have just a couple of blending exercises, and here we can start to make up our own words. So that can obviously be stretched out as much as necessary, and this could give a lot of time to classroom teamwork and so forth. But we also have this backed up in the workbook. Now I've already shown you that. The workbook gives extra materials as to how you could stretch that. So this is for each lesson, okay? And then at the end, we have a review, which are then backed up in the e-kit. So if I had a little chance to show you the e-kit, you would see that there are many more blending exercise opportunities there.
Also, Yasmin, I want to add something here. Phonics is about reading, especially with the SATPIN approach. It's all about reading. So the practice that we want to see the kids doing is to actually hold a book and read and be able to read on their own. We only do the practice exercise to ensure that they know the sounds of the letters, they can put the letters together, they can blend. Once they do this, we want to ask them to read exactly like the stories that Demi is showing at the moment. We can make sure of this by the exercises that are there in the student book, in the workbook, in the e-kit. They are more than enough. But then we want them to hold the stories and to read on their own. That's the best practice for phonics.
Yeah, and the idea is to get them reading independently. And just, you know, from having experienced young kids in the classroom and so forth, I find that independent learning, them reading alone, them writing alone and so forth is really how they get excited about this process. So as much as there are a few, and again, they're backed up in the e-kit, we do have this reader series to help ignite that process, which we can present at another stage if anyone's interested.
Great, thank you, Demi. Thank you, Sam.
So do we have any other questions from anyone? Anyone at all? All right, I think we're good to go now. And in all cases, we have Yasmin and we have our sales team on the ground, and you can always get back to us if ever you need anything. Thank you very much. Thank you, Demi.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you all. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Bye.